The modern university is the cradle of the nation's future. Today it not only preserves and transmits knowledge and values, it serves more and more as a center of research and innovation. It has been called the chief energizing and creative force in our entire social system. The modern university is the cradle of the nation's future. This be so, let us not underestimate the task we face. Meanwhile, the explosive growth still increases the demands upon us. The underdeveloped peoples look to us for training and guidance, and our own governments, the local governments, state governments, national governments, look increasingly to the universities for expert counsel and for scholars whom they can borrow to staff posts of high responsibility.
However much Kirk's personality and his style of administration may have exacerbated the situation would have been there no matter who was president of Columbia University. Right. So that, Prelinger came out with this thing that he's going to recommend that every month or every week, each dean set aside some time to talk to students who've done appointments, which makes the liberal assumption that what we have here is a failure of communication. But that isn't so, because it's an analysis of an entire system, of the functioning of a corporate entity that is at question. The students understand very, very well what the ruling class of Columbia does, what it is about.
The university now has become, to use an old term, a means of production, whereby one guy does a little bit for IDA, another little bit for CIA, where the troops, the NROTC, are trained here. And this university is now a means of production producing the mechanisms of human oppression. It's been bought out by the military. 50% of the research done here at this university depends on defense money.
And we can see when we look at the new buildings that are going up, that it's an engineering building, a business school, a law school, a school of international relations. We can tell how much this university is hooked into servicing the corporations and hooked into servicing the war machine.
William Burden is a director for Lockheed Aircraft. Maurice Moore is the counsel for General Dynamics, the F-111 company, and a junior partner in his law firm was the Undersecretary of Defense.
Kirk himself is a trustee of the Institute for Defense Analysis. He is president of Morningside Heights Incorporated, the organization which is concerned with institutional expansion on Morningside Heights. Also, if you wonder how it was that Columbia acquired the land for the gymnasium, a 400-year lease, renewable every 5 years after the first 100 years, at an incredibly low sum of money, all you have to do is look at who the trustees are. Percy Uris is chairman of the board of the Uris Buildings Corporation, a corporation which has done 17% of all the building in New York City since the war. Benjamin Buttonwieser, one of the trustees, is on the Uris Building Corporation. Courtney C. Brown, who is also on the Uris Building Corporation, is one of the directors of the board of CBS. William S. Paley, a trustee, is chairman of the board of the Columbia Broadcasting System. Arthur Hayes Sulzberger, he's chairman of the board of the New York Times. For 2 successive sessions of the state legislature, Columbia's ruling elite made journeys to Albany, New York, to convince legislators that this was indeed a wonderful thing for the Morningside Heights community, that Columbia should build its gym there.
But I don't think a gym 9 stories high with facilities for black people in the basement with a back door is something that black people want.
There has never been any dispute as to the position of this community on the placing of a gymnasium by a private institution in a public park.
I don't trust anybody in the administrative network of Columbia University because they have lied, they have contradicted themselves. Grayson Kirk wrote us a letter saying, we have stopped the gym. And the next damn day, the Board of Trustees states we have stopped the gym temporarily.
This house went up on violence, and this country's going down on violence. As a house go up, our house must come down, whether you like it or not.
On April 23rd, SDS called a demonstration in which we planned to demonstrate inside Low Library to protest Columbia's complicity with the Institute for Defense Analysis, its racism in building the gym in Morningside Park, and its attempted suppression of the left by disciplining 6 students. About 500 people joined us at the Sundial. We were opposed by about 200 jocks. We found that not only were the jocks there blocking our way, but we found when we got to Low Library that the library was locked by the administration.
They must have thought that would stop us, but it didn't. Because we went into Harlem, we busted into the gym site.
The pigs called in reinforcements. We were weak down in the park. The cops were coming pretty quickly.
And the numbers were building up. And Mark Rudd got up on the dirt mound and asked us to leave because we had 300 people back at the Sundial. We think we'd go back and meet them.
Taking Hamilton was, and Coleman was just the perfect thing after that.
Except it wasn't so perfect because, I don't know, at that point we were moving faster than we knew how.
Tremendous snowball, tremendous
Yeah, I mean,
morale.
almost despite ourselves. It was something we really wanted to do. On the other hand, it was something that we weren't sure we were ready to do.
It's our responsibility to use coercion. Well, you've used coercion, but we haven't completed.
Legal means working? Is it political pressure from congressmen and the community working? Are speeches and peaceful demonstrations working?
You're assuming that if you go through whatever channels you're going through, you're going to come out right.
Well, we're hoping.
Some of these things have gone on for weeks before the outcome has come.
At that point, we took Dean Coleman thinking he was our trump card. But we didn't know that our real strength was in holding the buildings and staying there. The real thing about the black-white split was that the two groups realized that we had 2 different political identities. The blacks wanted to stop the gym. They figured the best way to do this was to hold the building, barricade it. The whites, on the other hand, saw and still see that our goal is to radicalize other white people. We didn't want to confront other students coming to class. We thought that we should confront our enemy, the administration. But we didn't realize that we were much too timid, and that what we really had to do was to show our moral strength and hold the building. Now, the blacks saw that we were split amongst ourselves, that we weren't disciplined, and that we really didn't understand what the correct militant tactic was. So they asked us to leave.
Well, Mark came down from a steering committee meeting and told us that the blacks had asked us to split.
We left and took Low Library, defeated the administration.
Look, it's been 2 days and we've taken 5 buildings. Hamilton, Low, Avery, Fairweather, and Mass. If you've got the administration figured right, they're up to calling the cops. And when they do, we want to be here.
We barricaded up the basement, and the police were trying to come through, so what the brothers did was throw some water hose, knock the police back, that kind of thing, you know, and flooded the whole basement. Now, that was one of the best tactics. The police were very angry about that. But then they still didn't charge the building, and they were pretending that they didn't even try to come through the tunnels into the basement of the building, but they were trying to, like, take the building by surprise, quietly, that kind of thing, you know, and beat the movement that way. You know, try to defeat it before it spread to the black community, because I'm sure they weren't that worried about a handful of black students at Columbia University. It's when those kind of tactics and that kind of militancy you get from the university, and the brothers in the community say, look, Dick, these brothers up here who got it made are revolting too against the system. That's what they were trying to defeat, but they couldn't get through. I mean, there were mothers there who didn't have any sons in Columbia, who didn't want to see that park there, who didn't want IDA to be running down experiments at the school against their children and against their families. Everything from the far right, such as Haryuak, to the liberal right, such as Charles Kenyatta, to the far left, such as Epton and PL, and independent black militants.
These black high school kids, man, they snuck wrap around and right under the nose of hundreds of TPF.
Well, when we gathered at Brandeis and we were walking up Amsterdam Avenue to Columbia, we were talking about burning the fucking place down. And you know, we came up with baseball bats and hockey sticks, and when we got to Columbia, we broke through the police line.
They took H-Crack Ron in here. They what? They brought H-Crack Ron in here.
Here's a statement that was released by the students on the inside. I'll read the statement. Number 1, stopping of the construction of the gym. Number 2, dropping of the charges against all persons involved in demonstrations against the gym. Number 3, breaking of all faculty and administrative ties with IDA. Number 4, general amnesty for all the students involved. When the university has stopped construction of the gym and granted an amnesty, we will consider the questions of negotiation with the university. We are prepared to remain indefinitely until these conditions are met. The black students of Columbia University, joined by a few members of the black community, have been in Hamilton Hall for 56 hours, more than that now. We have established a cafeteria with adequate stores for all contingencies. A physician is in charge of our infirmary. Morale is high.
Of the 200 who went into Low Library, only 23 stayed when the first cop scare came. But as the days wore on, we realized that our strength was in our militancy, in staying in those buildings. It took the example of the blacks to move us.
The first thing we did when we got into Cook's office was hit his files. Besides a bunch of crap in his girly magazines, we found a bunch of papers linking Columbia to the IDA, a whole bunch of shit about putting down SDS, and a lot of letters about cleaning up the area by moving out the blacks and the Puerto Ricans.
First day in math, we set up a defense committee which took care of putting up the barricades. We decided what our policy would be toward police, toward jocks. We soaped some of the stairs. We taped the windows. We emptied bookcases and put them up in front of the windows in case tear gas canisters did get through the tape.
And it hung up a lot of people when there'd be a little scratch or mar on one of the marble top desks or something. At the second time we built barricades, these hang-ups disappeared, and we decided that barricades were necessary politically and strategically, and anything went in making strong, and this time, permanent type barricades.
The defense is all taken care of. Security is a problem. Letting people in and out of the buildings. Watches. We need people to watch the windows every night.
We had a walkie-talkie set up, citizens band walkie-talkies. Plus, there were telephone communications to every building, which the university tapped. We had 3 mimeographs that worked constantly, and there were people who did nothing during the strike but relate to the mimeograph machine. And there was a big sign on the wall, quote from somebody in Berkeley, which says, 5 students and a mimeograph machine can do more harm to a university than an army. Every building had their own little communications room that had to deal with the 4 or 5 modes of communication that we were using. One of the things that would happen was that each new group of people who came in the building, each new day's recruitment to the building, would become political, would understand the life of the commune, would understand what was going on by the meeting. The stable of commune life was the meeting that we'd meet for approximately 8 hours a day. A lot of it was political education, a lot of it was just bullshit, a lot of it was worrying about what we'd do when the police came.
Well, SDS is in name representing the student body, but in fact it's a
steering committee of various people from campus, and we're now trying to combat a faculty statement to the effect that no amnesty will be granted to students under any circumstances.
The question of amnesty is really important because it's a political question. Our legitimacy to protest has to be recognized before we can negotiate.
There seems to be a lot more dignity amongst the students now because they feel that they have a right to say the things they're saying. That's why I think maybe the amnesty issue has been raised and re-raised so many times here, and we've had to reassure ourselves by issuing votes of confidence for it every 30 minutes, because people are not sure whether they're supposed to be guilty for what they're involved in. And the whole issue of demanding amnesty first is to show that we have rights, and until we get those rights, we have to act in a coercive way.
The hang-ups that are usually present in any kind of collective enterprise were absolutely not there.
All year at school, I complained about my one roommate in the dormitory, but then I got to low library. We had 100 people in 3 rooms, and there was a sleeping space of 3 feet for 2 people. And the idea of privacy and the idea of sleeping sort of became so insignificant.
We never really got too much sleep because we were always having meetings and things, and people were always yelling and waking us up. But we didn't really care so much. We slept on the floor wherever we could, and that was about it.
And what the life of the commune was a group of people who were incredibly close to each other, on no other level than the level of struggle.
The strikers were getting community support. They were getting blankets, food, and money. But they were also getting some opposition from the faculty and from right-wing students.
The jocks messed around low. They had locked arms, and every now and then they would try and keep the food out. They tried to keep a record player out, radios, everything. They were acting as the stooges for the administration.
These people have instructions. They're going to stand here, arms crossed. They're not going to say anything. That's our only position. No comment on food at the moment. Get out of the way. That food is going up. There's nothing else to say. That food is going up.
They ain't been eating. These motherfuckers have been eating. They have it. Of course they have. They got plenty of food. They don't have any. They don't have any left. They called us up. You haven't been up there. Don't say anything. They don't have any food. These cats have been eating. Hey, you're getting blood. That's all they wanted. You're getting it. You don't need to have it. You're gonna mess it up if you get that.
They want food in there. That food is going up.
Stop it! You damn fool! Cut it!
Now the position of the professors was one of being the police, that they had to take sides. Either they were for taking food in or not for taking food in. They were on the side of the jocks or on our side.
But they never understood that. The faculty wanted to mediate between us and the administration because they never understood the nature of our demands or of our struggle.
Kirk certainly understood what was going on much better than the faculty did.
The faculty was in its own way just as naive as the law and order politicians were, because the only alternative they could see to the maintenance of the present system was chaos. They couldn't see beyond the occupation of the buildings to the creation of something that might be better. Everyone was, for like at least an entire week, living at full capacity. There was a total collective feeling. No one particularly cared about his individual feelings because he never even experienced them. Everything was experienced in the most collective sense that I've ever known. If you talk to anyone outside, they immediately realized that there was something there that they had never seen before. This was one of the new experiences for most of the people at the strike. It's sort of an electric awakening.
It was communal food. We ate what was given to us, what we could find, but mostly what was most important is we shared everything. We shared our oranges, our Cokes, our sandwiches, and surprising to all of us was this urge that we didn't want to eat something all by ourselves. If somebody beside us was hungry, didn't have a sandwich, we'd share a sandwich.
People are living here. They are living here between meetings, and it's a home. It's a home. I've never been so comfortable on this campus.
As the spirit in Fairweather was so high tonight, we decided that it would be entirely appropriate to be married.
It was felt that Fairweather was not only holy ground, but was our home. And we therefore chose to be married at home with our family.
I, Andrea, take thee, Richard.
I, Andrea, take thee, Richard.
I, Richard, take thee, Andrea. I, Richard, take thee, Andrea. I now pronounce that Andrea and Richard are children of the new age.
Immediately of trespass to the New York City Police Department in connection with your activities. We have been informed that the police department will take all the necessary action in connection with our complaint against you. This order to remove yourself forthwith is separate and apart from any question of amnesty. You will be subject to proper disciplinary action by the university in any event.
Posts of high responsibility.
However much Kirk's personality and his style of administration may have exacerbated the situation would have been there no matter who was president of Columbia University. Right. So that, Prelinger came out with this thing that he's going to recommend that every month or every week, each dean set aside some time to talk to students who don't have appointments. which makes the liberal assumption that what we have here is a failure of communication. But that isn't so, because it's an analysis of an entire system, of the functioning of a corporate entity that is at question. The students understand very, very well what the ruling class of Columbia does, what it is about.
The university now has become, to use an old term, a means of production, whereby one guy does a little bit for IDA, another little bit for CIA, where the troops, the NROTC, are trained here. And this university is now a means of production producing the mechanisms of human oppression. It's been bought out by the military. 50% of the research done here at this university depends on defense money.
And we can see when we look at the new buildings that are going up, that it's an engineering building, a business school, a law school, a school of international relations. We can tell how much this university is hooked into servicing the corporations and hooked into servicing the war machine.
William Burden is a director for Lockheed Aircraft. Maurice Moore is the counsel for General Dynamics, the F-111 company, and a junior partner in
the cradle of the nation's future. This be so. Let us not underestimate the task we face. Meanwhile, the explosive growthage still increases the demands upon us. The underdeveloped peoples look to us for training and guidance, and our own governments, the local governments, state governments, national governments, look increasingly to the universities for expert counsel and for scholars whom they can borrow to staff. The modern university is the cradle of the nation's future. Today it not only preserves and transmits knowledge and values, it serves more and more as a center of research and innovation. It has been called the chief energizing and creative force in our entire social system. The modern university is